All right. So today we're going over how do I create urgency in a sales conversation without sounding pushy? How the hell do I do that? I think it's really important that we understand that the way that we show up in a sales conversation can either attract somebody to want to buy from us, or it could get somebody to feel like we're giving them the ick, which we don't want to do. So as you're dropping in here, please drop below your industry so we can make this industry specific. I'm going to pin this up the top. If you want to see the full in front, we're in the Facebook group as well, Women in Sales. And we're going to jump straight in here. Here we go. Perfect. Boom. And here as well. Amazing. Okay. So there's a couple of different things that are going on here. We have SaaS here, Enagic, video editing, solar. I love it. Hell yeah. Hell yes to all the things. Why does urgency work? Okay. So in a sales conversation, you have to understand the science behind decision making. And we have to understand why we would want to increase a sense of urgency inside of a sales conversation in order for them to get closer to buying. So I want you to write notes with me here. There's two things that are happening. People act when they perceive a compelling reason to act right now, which is going to tie into two core drivers. Number one, and the most important, is pain avoidance, which means that they are moving away from a current or an anticipated pain, right? Which is pain and the fear of future pain, pain avoidance. The second thing is pleasure seeking, where they're moving towards a desired result or a benefit. So an urgency creates a focus by highlighting the costs of waiting or highlighting the reward of acting right now. So the purpose of you creating this urgency is to highlight and bring up to the surface what's going to happen if they wait, and give them a reward, right? Pleasure seeking, if they choose to do something right now versus wait later. Now, the brain's action trigger, right? There's three different aspects of this. When your brain prioritizes decisions, it's typically because of a couple things. Number one, time sensitive. Like, think about how you make decisions and how you prioritize things. Time sensitive. Two, more importantly, it's emotionally connected. People make decisions with emotions all the time. Every single decision that you've ever made is all from emotion. You can't literally go to the restroom if the emotional part of your brain was damaged. But in order for you to take action, typically it's because there's an emotional connection to it. There's a time sensitivity on it. And then most importantly, it's clear and easy. Clear and easy to do. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced having like a long-winded presentation with somebody where they're going over all the features and the benefits and all this other stuff, and they're so complicated. And you're like, that sounds complicated. And your brain feels uncertain. And uncertain brains do not buy. Okay. When your brain feels uncertain, it does not want to buy. So it's going to be really, really hard if you put yourself in a position where you are complicating the sales process and your prospect is confused. I want to make sure my prospect is not confused. How do I do that? By making it very clear and very simple to do, right? Now, for example, how do I get them to prioritize the cost of waiting? Is to get them to envision what would happen if they didn't do anything and they continued the behavior that they're in. What do I mean by behavior? Every single person that is where they are at today is a reflection of all the decisions they've ever made in order to get to this point of time. And all sales is your ability to change this person, change how they make decisions, because the way that they've done everything to get them to where they are is not what's going to get them to this next level, regardless of what you're selling. They're going to have to change their perspective. And that's your job. Your responsibility is to change their perspective. So like if you have a client that comes to you and says like, it's not the right time, and you can get them to think about the perspective of what's going to happen if they wait another 6 months and what it would cost them in income, what it would cost them in their ability to show up for their family, or what it would cost them, like depending on what you sell. So let's say you sold even roofing and there was a leak in someone's roof, right? What would happen if they waited another 6 months and didn't fix it? And the cost of that has to be higher than them staying the same. So you're getting them to look at possible issues if they wait, right? Because again, people perceive compelling reasons to act. And it goes back to those two core drivers: pain avoidance and pleasure seeking. It's how people make decisions. So let's go into two things like that are happening in sales conversations to figure out which one that you're doing. You are either pushing or you're pulling people to you. If I'm pushing is fear-based urgency. Okay. Now, fear-based urgency is typically pushing driven by like pressure, manipulation, or scarcity. I don't know if you've ever seen like somebody say, oh, well, we only have 2 left, and you know fair well that they have more than 2 left. That's a scarcity tactic, a pushing tactic, right? First of all, it feels super uncomfortable to the buyer and it leads to resistance. They know what you're doing. Like, prospects are more intelligent these days, okay? They can tell that you're trying to sell them, right? So you pushing some fear tactic down someone's throat and hoping that gets them to buy right then, it's not going to work. When you pull dynamics with creating urgency, this is when you're focusing on solving problems, okay? Or fulfilling someone's desires, because again, you have pain avoidance or you have pleasure seeking. So if I'm trying to pull someone towards me, that means that I'm focusing on solving a problem and fulfilling their desire, and I'm empowering this buyer to act. Solving problems means I'm getting them to focus on the pain that would happen if they stayed the same. Yes? Now, when you do this, it's going to create natural urgency by connecting to your prospect's needs and their priorities, right? This should feel like you're collaborative, like you're working with this person in order to get closer to their goals together as a team, not pushing them into a direction of where you're wanting them to go. So for example, like a push tactic would be like, this is your last chance to buy today. Like, don't wait. This is your last chance, okay? A pull tactic would be like, well, based on everything that you shared, when we get started now, this is going to help you, and you talk about their specific outcome sooner. Okay. So for example, like, let's say somebody is like, oh, I don't know, like, this is just really scary, and you got clarity on it and you're kind of sitting with them, and then you try to do a push tactic. Well, this is your last chance. The sale finishes tonight. You won't be able to get this tomorrow. That's a push tactic. That's fear-based. That's manipulation, right? Because I'm sure this person's going to get it at the same price tomorrow. Like, it's BS, right? Everyone's done that before. Or you can be like, well, John, based on everything that you shared with me right now, right? Like, if you were to wait for the next 6 months, how are you going to be able to do X if you don't get started right now? X would be their outcome. So let's take out another scenario. Let's talk about life insurance. Like, yeah, Sally, well, based on everything that you shared, like, how are you going to be able to make sure that that little Sydney Jr. is going to be financially protected, if you were to pass away? Right? Nothing's uncertain, nothing's certain. Let's pick out a different industry. Let's say that you're trying to put some type of software in place, and the software can help doctors dictate all their notes so they can see more time with patients, right? And this person, instead of going, oh, well, this is your last chance, I can get this deal for you if I go to my boss, like, you don't want to do that. But if you're like, well, based on everything that you shared, like, how are you going to make sure that you actually have more time for these doctors to, lower your, how are you going to make sure that you have more available time for your doctors to see patients so that you can increase revenue if you don't put the software in place, right? So you're always talking about a consequence, a ramification, a pain that could possibly happen if they don't change today, right? That is how, and I'm doing it by being on their side. I'm talking about how they're going to achieve the result that they're looking for. I'm not talking about, well, you need to pay today in order to get a deal. That is price-based thinking. If I'm in price-based thinking, I'm not in outcome-based thinking. And it's going to be harder for this person to overcome what's ever going on in their mind because you're only focused on yourself. That's not how you're going to be able to help this person be able to overcome what's going on in their mind. Okay. So we want to create urgency in the right way, right? And this is why it's really important to use our methodology, RED. RED stands for real, empowering, disarming questions, right? Asking questions in a way that feels authentic. Because if you sound disingenuous in your sales process, that's probably one of the biggest reasons that you have why people are not buying for you. If you sound fake, if you sound like you're trying so hard, and that can be particularly difficult if you're in a newer industry or you're in a newer role, because you have to have the small steps, like the little disciplines, the reps underneath you in order for you to sound more certain, more confident on the phone or in person or whatever you're selling. So you have to have an understanding that there's a level of patience with yourself and an understanding of how sales work. Because if you can understand how to ask certain questions in order for somebody to drop their guard and pay attention to you and really want to have a conversation with you, you're going to be in a way better place than you just reading a script and guessing. Sales is the only industry it's just absolutely mind-boggling that doesn't require intensive years and years of training. Right? Like, can you imagine if I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be an engineer. I'm going to go build this bridge. I just watched a few YouTube videos. I'm sure I can figure it out. Like, no one's going to let me go build a damn bridge. Like, that would be so crazy. So why is it that people can say, oh, I'm in sales, I'm good at sales. I've just watched a few videos, I can figure it out. Like, that's absolutely ludicrous. Like, you get to be in a place where you have some patience with yourself and you have a willingness to really enhance your skill level and really understand the mind and the brain and psychologically what's happening in somebody's brain so that you can hold space for them and really get them to change their perspective, which is all sales, which is what all sales is about. It's getting you to change this person's perspective. Okay. So let me see. Okay. So you can use a couple of different questions at the end of a conversation that would get them to view staying the same as being painful for them. You use pain and you use future pain. How the hell do you get pain? Right? How the hell do you get future pain? You get pain from the situation that this person is in. Everybody is in a situation that they don't 100% like. Okay. So because somebody is in a situation that they don't 100% like, you can poke on that situation and bring it up to the surface and make them realize that it's not so great. Now, how do I know this? Because a lot of people are in situations in their life that they're not very happy with, right? A lot of people are in loveless relationships, right? They're not happy with their body. They're not happy with their relationship with their kids, their family, right? But we just go day to day and be in the mundane of it because it would be too painful to look at that and try to pick it apart and see what's not working. Okay. So what you're doing when you're talking to somebody is figuring out what's going on in their current situation, like what's going on right now in this very moment that is maybe hurting them. It's maybe not the best. And you're bringing that up to the surface. Now, as you do this, this person is going to be communicating with you and talking to you about what's going on. And the verbiage that they use while you're talking to them about this, and you're saying, like, can you walk me through what's going on? And you're asking them about specific things in your industry, and they're bringing up like situations and issues, and you're asking how long it's been there, and they're telling you, and you're asking how it's affecting them. They're telling you, and you're bringing all this stuff. The verbiage that they use verbatim is what you're going to use at the end of a sales conversation. So, for example, let's say that you're talking to somebody and you're selling like a biz up offer, and this person just wants to have more time with their kids. And you ask them how long they spend with their kids right now. They're like, well, I have 2 kids at home. I rarely get to see them. Okay. Later on in the conversation, maybe I'll bring up pain from the conversation that they've told me by saying, hey, earlier I know you mentioned that you have 2 kids and you rarely get to see them. I have to say it verbatim. I can't say this, even though it's the same thing. Hey, earlier I know you mentioned you have a couple kiddos at home and that sometimes you never see or play with them. Even though it sounds similar, it's 2 different things. I want to try to use the exact verbiage that this person used because their brain is going to connect to that verbiage. And when I connect with that verbiage later on in the conversation, they're going to feel like I understand them better than anybody else because I've been actively listening. So I can use pain that they brought up earlier in the conversation. So my concern here, John, is earlier you mentioned ABC meaning painful things, and that you were really wanting, and I talk about their outcome that they're wanting. Like, are you sure that this is what you want? And I can use a how question to talk about future pain. Well, how are you going to be able to do X if you don't Y? How are you going to be able to do this if you don't do this? And you always want to tie in outcomes. So like for solar, like how are you going to be able to lock in your rate and lower your bill if you don't, put panels on your roof, right? Just a random example. How are you going to be able to, for a car, how are you going to be able to, get your kids safely to daycare and you to work if you don't get a new car? Right. And again, talking about the situation, talking about the outcome, you're always listening very attentively to what this person is wanting and you're plugging it in. You have to make sure that they feel like there's a consequence if they don't do something today. And that is what's going to create the urgency. The urgency comes from me actively listening and caring about this person and wanting them to get a result because of what it's going to do for them, not because of what it's going to do for me. Right. And that's what sales is about. Sales is about service. So I want to make sure that I'm being in a place of service versus being like, you need to do this today. This is the only time we can do this sale. This is the only time I can get this across the line. Let me see what I can do with my boss. Like, no, you don't need any of that. What you need is to really get their pain point and really get their willingness to avoid the pain and their willingness to seek pleasure from the outcome that they're looking for, and utilize psychology, utilize like understanding the way their brain makes decisions, understanding the way that their brain processes having this urgency, so you can get them to where they need to go because it would help them, right? Not necessarily that it would help you. Anyways, I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you can use some of this. I want you to save this video. I'm going to post it so you can save it and comment here anything that would help you as well. There's a science behind this, guys. And I think that once we get out of our own head and we really understand how the brain works, it makes it less about us doing it like good or bad and really get into a place where we can help more people, right? So I honor all of you. I also have a masterclass coming up on Thursday night. It's all on tonality and scripting and fixing your script. So if you want to come to that masterclass, just DM me the word masterclass. My team will send over that link for you and we can help you and support you on that. And I hope that it helps. I'll see you all Thursday night. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.